Okay, cool. So already you guys already know my name. My name is Victor, right? Victor Oko. And then today we'll talk about loops, but then we are going to recap on what we did, right? We already talked about loops in our other class, but then apart from just talking about loops, we are going to talk mainly about continue statement and break statement, right? Again, but I'm not going to. Yeah, I'm going to go into details, but since I've already taught it in the last class, right? I won't really dwell much on it. But then I'm also going to talk about how to use for for off loops and for in loops, and what are the differences between a for off loop and a for in loop, right? And then from there we'll go into classes and objects. And I know um, that's uh, that's we'll talk about object-oriented programming, and then see how we can create classes, how we can create objects from classes, and other things about classes. We might also look about private properties too, classes and their private properties, and how they behave, right? So that's just what we are going to cover, right? So this is it. We'll talk about continuing break statements, and then we'll talk about for off and for in loops, right? Then the next thing we are going to do is object-oriented programming with JavaScript. Okay, so um, I know that it's not everybody that really understood how continue and break works, right? So um, we'll go into that now. Okay, so let me share my VS Code now. Okay, so let me do that. Um, okay, hope you guys can see it. See my VS Code. Hello, can you guys see my VS Code?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, so um, let me give you a simple example, right? Let me see. Let me see. Um, um, okay, I want to count from 1 to 20, but while counting from 1 to 20, right? I want to skip, let's say, the number 7. The number 7, right? I want it to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, right? So if I wanted to do that in a loop, how do you think I would write that, right? So this is how I'm going to do it, because I want to achieve that result. Um, I want to skip, let's say the number 7, for example. So this is how I'm going to do it. I'll then write for, right, let I equals to 0. I should be less than 21. Okay, let's say less than or equal to 20. Then I'll then say I plus plus. Okay, if we do that, it's going to print out 1 to 20. It's going to print out from number 1 to 20, right? But then it will print plus the number 7, right? So if I run it, node run me, oh sorry, node run me, and I with console.log console.log I, right? To count from 0 to 20, from 0 to 20. If I want it to count from 1 to 20, definitely I can do that from 1 to 20 now. Okay. Oh yeah, my screen is also, let me make the font size bigger. Okay, so we've printed from 1 to 20 now, right? But I don't want to include the number 7. So how do I do that, right? How do I tell this loop that it should skip logging out the number 7? Okay, that's like a very simple example. Now, how I would want to do that is, I would say there are two ways of doing it, right? But then um, I could write this. I could say if I is equals to 7, then continue, right? But if I is not equals to 7, print I. That's what I'm simply saying here. So continue is going to continue is when once this condition is true, right? Continue will not allow this to log out that information. Instead, it is going to just skip that iteration from that when I7, it will just skip the iteration and then continue from 8, and then it's going to run. So if we run that code now, we come back here and we do run, right? You see, it prints from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But then when it gets to 7, this now becomes true. So what we are saying effectively is like saying when once I is 7, don't continue down here to print like whatever code is under here. Instead, go to the next iteration, like just add 1 to I so that I will become 8, and then continue from there. I can add more and more conditions here. I could say I could add another one that um, if I is equals to 10, we should continue. Okay, right? If we run that again, you'd see that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We don't have 7, we have 8, we have 9. We don't also have 10, right? So this continue is like saying it's telling the Node.js, skip that current iteration, right? Skip that current iteration where I is equals to 10 and move to the next iteration. Okay, and notice where we are putting this, we are putting it at the top. If this console.log I was at the top and we tried to come and run this code, then it's going to print everything, right? So this acts in a way like kind of guards, right? If you're writing a loop and then you want to skip over some iteration if a particular condition is true, then you can use continue. But now continue still runs the loop to the end, right? But when once those conditions are true, for the continue statement. The continue statement will just skip that iteration and move to the next iteration. Okay, but if we used break, right? Break is going to um, uh, stop the iteration at all. It's not going to finish that particular iteration. Do you guys grab what I'm saying? Do you understand? Who doesn't
Yes,
understand?
I understand it now.
Okay,
Yeah, I
so
was the one who complained on the platform.
okay, okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right. So apart from you, does anybody else still have problems with using the continue statement? Hello. Does anybody have does anybody have that any issue? Nobody has issue again. So but if this was a break statement instead, right? Okay, let me do this. Let me say this is a continue statement and this here is a break statement, right? Let me put this in between here. Let me put that console.log in between there. So what do you think is going to happen? What will be the result if we run this code? Can anybody try? Can anybody try to guess the result?
Yeah, it's going. Oh, okay, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's gonna keep 7.
You say it's going to what?
It's gonna keep 7, but then
Okay.
exit at 10.
Yeah, it's going to exit at 10. Yes, you're correct. So if we run it now, you see that it brings from 1 when once it reaches 7, all right, it skips that 7 and moves to 8, right? Right. Then after skipping, okay, from then 8, when once we reach 10, where we are saying that let the loop break, like we are stopping the loop. So even if we wanted to loop from 1 to 20, but this line of code has effectively like stopped the loop from continuing further till 20. Okay, so that's the main difference between using a continue and a break statement, right? Anybody still having issues with it? Yeah, Timothy Alabi said yes. So the break statement will exit the loop, right? But then the continue statement is going to skip a particular iteration. So if I'm supposed to break this down, right? Let me try and break it down. Okay. Now, I is the value of I, right? I now is equals to 1. Okay. Then we are checking, is 1 less than 20? Yes. So um, would start to run this, right? The first thing we check now is I equals to 7. No, the value of I now is 1. Is 1 equals to 7? No. So 1 is not equals to 7. So which means this is not going to run, right? So what do? We log out I. So we log out 1 because I is 1. Then after logging out 1, we check, is 1 equals to 10? No. So since 1 is not equals to 10, um, nothing happens, right? We just move to the next iteration. So I'll just say next iteration, right? Then when I when I now equals to the next iteration, remember we're adding 1 to I, so I now becomes 2, right? So after that, we'll check, is 2 equals to 7? No, 2 is not equals to 7. So we log out 2. Then after logging out 2, check, is 2 equals to 10? No. So move to the next iteration. Okay. We keep doing that, right? So we keep doing that for I think for when I equals to 3, when I equals to 4, we just keep doing that. When I equals to 5, and when I equals to when I equals to 6, right? But then at this particular point, I now equals to 7, right? And then we are checking, is I equals to 7? Yes. So we won't proceed further to log out I. The loop won't proceed further to log out I. Instead, what would happen is we'll just move to the next iteration. So the next iteration would mean that we'll add 1 to I. So I will become 8, right? And then after that log we'll check, is 8 equals to 7? No. So we'll log out 8. And after that we'll check, is 8 equals to 10? No. So we move to the next iteration. Then the same thing is going to happen for 9, right? um we'll check we'll check, is 9 equals to 7? No. Is 9 equal to 10? No. Okay. So at this point where I becomes 10, right? So when I is 10, we'll check, is 10 equals to 7? No. So we can now proceed to log out I. So at this point, we'll now say log 10. Then after logging out 10, right? One, we will now check is I equals to 10 because I now is 10. So it's like saying is 10 equals to 10? Yes, 10 is equals to 10. So what do? We break the loop here. So is that simple, right? This is not rocket science. You can easily understand you can easily understand like everything that's happening. You can understand everything that is happening. It's not that difficult, right? Okay. Who has any question? Anybody has any question? Hello. Anybody? Any question? No question, right? Hello. Nobody has any question. All right. So I'll continue then. So that's the explanation. Now let's move to another way of looping through um, looping through objects. Okay. All right. So you can loop through. I know you can loop through an array using for each. Yes. You can loop through an array, right, to get a new array using map. Right. I know I explained this too. Right. Okay, but then you can also look through an array using the for of loop. So let me create an array of fruits. For example, fruits equals to I'll say mango, pear, um, orange, um, banana. Right? We have those, right? How do I want to use a for of loop to loop through um, this array of fruits, right? So how do I do that? This is how you write it. You'd say for fruits. Remember, you use for let fruit of fruits. For let fruit of fruits. So fruit of fruits is like saying for each iteration, like for the first iteration, this fruit will be mango. For the second iteration, this fruit will have the value of pear. For the third iteration, this fruit will have the value of orange. And the fourth iteration, this fruit will have the value of banana. So then after that, we can then access the value of our fruits, right? From here. So if I console.log fruit, right? We come back here and we run the code. You see that um, it loops through our fruits array, right? And then it prints us um, each of the fruits, right, inside the array. And you can also use this to loop through an array of objects. Okay. Any question? Hello, is there any question?
Uh, Good afternoon. Please, please,
Okay.
my question is just I want to ask why are you? I know the difference between constant let and why are you
Okay.
using const here? What is it that is your choice, or is there any reason for for regularly using
Yeah.
it?
Um. Well, it's my choice. I like using const, right? And another reason I'm using it is because I'm not planning on redeclaring fruits, right? Or changing the value of fruits. Okay. So that's one of the reasons why I'm using const, right? But if I plan on maybe changing the value of fruits, the variable fruits, right? Then that's when I would want to um, consider doing that. Okay. Is there any other question? Have I answered your question? Hello, hello. Have I answered your question? Hello. Have I answered your question? Or is she here?
Yes, so okay, you've answered me, but I've not really,
You're not really what?
I've not really gotten on. I'm not getting you very well. Maybe because I don't really know. I was not getting you very well.
Okay. So what I was saying is that it doesn't really matter whether you're
Okay,
using whether I'm using that whether I'm using let or const. It doesn't really matter, right?
okay,
So the reason why I'm using const is because I'm not planning on trying to maybe reassign the value of fruits to be something else. So fruits will just remain mango, pear, orange, and banana. I'm not ready to
okay,
do anything on it.
okay.
So I hope I've answered your question.
Yes,
Okay. All right. So apart from this, you can also get the some people might say, okay, we are looking through fruits, right? But then how do we get the index of those fruits? I think this is a way you can do that. You can say um, index, index, and let's say fruits. So let me see if I can console the log both index and fruits, if that is going to work. Oh, sorry, dot entries. I think that's what I missed out. Okay, all right. So with writing this like writing your loop like this, right? In case you want to, for example, you want to get the index of each of what you're looping through, right? This is how you're going to write it. You write let then index and fruit like this. Index here is or whatever you want to call it. Even if you want to call it I, right? It's still the same thing. You can say I or whatever you want to call it. Then the first value, right, is going to be the index itself. And the second value is going to be the value of each of the elements inside that particular array. Then fruits.entries is just saying return an iterable key, right? So of course, and the key is the index for each of these particular elements. Okay, am I making sense?
Yes, you are.
Okay, so that's one way to actually look through, right? So you can use any one, right? You can use for each, you can use for, you can use for off to look through. You see, there are different ways to look through um, there are different ways to look through an array in JavaScript. You're not just limited to one method of doing that, of looping through, right? You have different methods of looping through. Now, we've been talking about arrays. I hope you know it's possible to loop through an object in JavaScript too. It's not like it's not just arrays, right? You can look through objects in JavaScript, right? So how do we look through objects in JavaScript? Let's take, for example, I have, let me use let's, maybe people are, let's user equals to, then I have an object, right? maybe the object I have um, name, um, just his name is Victor. I have location, location as Eket. Um, ah, sorry, Rio. What else should I put? For example, um, nationality, right? Then I'd say Nigerian, right? Now, how do we look through an object in JavaScript? This is how you look through an object. You use a for in loop, right? A for in loop is used to look through an object, right? In JavaScript, you can use it to look through an object, see what the value of those objects and the rest. So this is how you would use a for in loop, right? Let me delete all this. You say for um let me say let's um you in user, right? And then we would say want to console.log. Now this u here is not the value, right? This u here is not the value, right? It is the key to the value. Remember, if I write user.name, it's going to print out Victor. If I write user.location, it's going to print out to you. If I write user.nationality, it's going to print out Nigerian. Okay, but then if I just log out u alone, right? It's going to print out the keys. Now, remember something I said once. I said, or if I said this before, I said that you can do stuff like this. You can use, there are two ways you can print out the value of a particular object. So, anybody here knows those two valid methods of printing out like the value of an object. Can anybody try? Can
How
anybody
to
try?
what? How to what?
Print out the value
Object.
of an object. Uh-huh.
And just
You can use the
it will
dot
be
notation.
use the dot
Yes.
or the square bracket.
Okay. So you can either use the dot notation or you can use the square bracket notation. Okay. So if we want to use the dot notation, we would then do this. We would say user dot name, right? That's using the dot notation. What if we wanted to use the bracket notation, right? This is how we would write it. We would say user, then we would put in a bracket here. And then inside that bracket, we will pass in the key of the particular object we want to have access to. So at this point, we are going to pass in name, right? Like that. Okay. So these are the two ways you can use to access the properties of an object. So if I run this, maybe node run name, you see, these two are printing the same values, right? If I change this to location, it will, and this to location, it will print out the same values. Location, location. Now, all these things I'm doing, you guys, I hope you're taking notes because this will make a whole lot of sense when we start writing back end code, and we are going to start doing that pretty soon, very very soon. Let's even say from next week or upper week we'll start writing back end. Like I think we'll start with CRUD operation. Then from CRUD operation we'll move into authentication and then other things. So now, if you want, you use the bracket notation, right? When you want to print out.
Hello, sir.
Hello, can you hear?
Yeah. Yes, sir. please, sorry, I want to point out something. I hope I'm not interrupting.
Okay.
Please, when I console.log using the square bracket, it
Yes.
yeah is printing out twice for me. Is it normal?
Printing out twice. Do you
Yes,
have
like I
another
cause
console.log somewhere else?
yes, I didn't comment on that one.
And it's going to print that one and the other one now.
Okay. Sorry, sorry.
Yeah, all right. So we have these two, right? Now you use the bracket notation when you are doing using a for in loop. Okay. Actually, right? You won't even say this is actually a loop because you're not looking through like numbers like iterating through numbers, right? You're iterating through the key of an object. So if we want to print out the values of these are objects, this is what we would then do. We'd write user at u. So if we do that now, we see Victor, Oyo, and Nigerian. So um, how about if we wanted to put that in a sentence, right? So um, I could say, okay, um, well, it wouldn't make sense if I put it in a sentence, right? Let me make it look like a key value thing, right? I could say u, comma, then I'll say equal to, then comma, like equal, what's that? Sorry. I could write that in that way. So it is going to print name equals Victor, user location equals to you, nationality equals to Nigerian. If I run that now, so name equals to Victor, location Uyo, nationality Nigerian. Okay, so you you're always going to use a for in loop if you want to loop through um, an object, right? Then, but a for of loop for each and a normal for loop, you can use that to then loop through um, an array. Okay. Does anybody have any question based on what I have done so far? Any question?
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Hello.
Please, I didn't understand what you are trying to achieve with that you in user.
What? Okay, let me just name this. Let me say key in user, right? The key now is referring to that this key is referring to iteration through this object name, right? Which is Victor, the value of the nationality and the value of the location, the location and nationality. So you access that by saying user, right? Which is this user object, the user object at where that key is. That's what I'm saying here. So I'm saying for the first iteration, right? Key is the value of key is name. So we are saying I want to print the user where the key is that name. The second iteration, right? The value of this key is going to be the location. So here we are printing out the user where the key value is the location, right? So this is going to give you the values, right? But then if you want to, you can do without the key. It's like accessing the key only. You can only maybe want to print out the whole value of an object, for example. Okay, so if you want to do that, you can just use this method, right? It's just going to print out Victor, Oyo, and Nigerian. If you see Victor, Oyo, and Nigerian. So at the first instance, right, running this, the value of the key will be the name. Remember that for in is used to loop through the keys of an object. It's used to iterate through the keys in an object. Okay, so instead of you coming to say, like, let's say you have like 10 objects, instead of you coming to say maybe you want to output the value of each of those objects, you now come and write maybe 10 lines of code to output them one by one, like coming to do something like this in console.log, and you now say user name, then you come back here and write user, then you change this to location, then you come back and then you now say user nationality, right? Instead of doing this, right? What if the value of our objects was like the property of our objects, right? We're like 20. So which means you write this 20 times. But instead of that, why don't you look through that object? Okay, so to look through that object, you can use your for in loop, right? You use your for in loop to look through the object, right? Do you understand now?
Yes.
Yes, I will do.
Okay.
Understand. I have a question, please.
Okay. Ask your question.
Do I need to install anything to use this line of code? Because I have just run everything exactly as it is, and it is telling me require stack.
Require stack.
Yes,
You don't need to install anything new. You don't need to install anything new. Check where your code, your terminal is pointing to. If it's pointing to the right folder,
yes,
or if
it
it's
is.
pointing to the right folder. Is it pointing to the right folder?
Yes, it is. Right
Okay.
folder,
Then,
right document.
okay. Did you save the code before running it on
Yes,
your terminal?
yes, yes, I saved it.
Okay. So when it shows require stack, is it showing something like module not found?
No, it just
What
said
is the error
internal
message?
model. Internal model CJS loader 1051. Then throw, okay, error
Uh,
messages cannot find model.
yes. So which means it can't. You can't. It's not seeing the file that you're trying to run inside the folder that you're pointing at. So which
Okay,
means
yes.
probably the folder you're pointing at and where you're writing the code are two different places. So it can't find the file that you're trying to run. Do you
Okay,
understand it now?
okay.
Yeah, so you can resolve that. I hope you already know how to resolve that.
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Sorry, Mr.
All right,
Victor.
okay.
Yeah, for this for loop, so what we're trying to achieve is um looping
Looping through an
through,
object.
yes, this object, right? So if
Yes.
for instance we run this console.log user and then um each of the keys, right?
Uh-huh.
So is it gonna so it's gonna output any of the key that we input in this in this bracket, right? And not all of them
Yeah,
at
it's going to output. Oh, you mean if we remove this key from here, if we remove this one,
yeah.
it's going to output the whole object, but it's going to output it 3 times.
Okay. Oh, okay.
You see? But
Yeah.
now it's not looping through each of the keys. It understands that there are 3 keys inside this object, but what you're telling it to output is the whole object. So it's going to output the whole object 3 times.
Oh, okay.
But let's say if I wanted it to print out name 3 times, I'll just say dot name. and it's going to print Victor, Victor, Victor.
So what I want
But
to
now,
understand is if we want to
mm,
output, for instance, name, location, and nationality at the same time. So what do we put user dot, or like how do we do it so it can output three of those keys at the same time with its corresponding element?
oh, okay, I think I understand what you're trying to say. I think I understand what you're trying to say. That means you need to access the keys one by one here. For example, you can do this. My name is, then you then say user dot name, but it's going to print it three times though. And I, I stay, I stay at, then I'll say
But,
user dot location, then I'd say the next thing is going to be, and I am a, right? Then user dot nationality. Okay, and if you run that now, it's going to print it three times, right?
okay.
Hi, my name is Victor, whatever. It's going to print it three times. But then, if you now wanted to do, if you wanted to print like all this in one line once, then that's when you have to like how do I put it? You try to get the individual values one by one. So that will mean you're not even putting it in any loop. If you want to get the individual value like once. So now it's showing my name is Victor and I stay at Rio and I'm in Nigeria. You see?
Okay.
Yeah, so if you want to get the individual values, then you have to call it one by one, right? And there will be no need for you putting it in a loop, right?
Okay.
But
All right.
then if you want to look through so that you maybe you can just get those individual values. For example, I can look through and add all the value of this into an array. I could do this. I could just say user array. I could do something like this. Const user array should be equal to an empty array. Then inside here, I would then say instead of logging out that, I'll just say maybe user array dot push. Then I'll push in I'll push in user at key, right? Maybe at the end of the day, I want to console.log user array. At the end of the day, doing that, right? Run if I run that code, you see that per each of those values, I've been able to push them into an array, right? And then I can use that array to do whatever I want to do. Does it make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Okay, all right. Any other question?
Yes, there's question.
Okay,
Please,
what's the
sir.
question?
I tried using user.key in the console.log, but it was given undefined.
Mainly at this point, you use user.key.
Yes, yes, it was
It
giving
won't
me
work.
undefined. Oh,
It won't work because um, I don't really know how to explain it to you. This key is a variable now, right? And this variable stores the value of the property you're trying to access. So you cannot use a notation to access it. You can't do this. It's not going to work.
okay.
You have to use the bracket notation.
Nice, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. So just note that anytime you're using a for in loop, right, to loop through an object, you're always going to use the bracket notation. Don't forget that. Okay. Okay. So I hope there's no other question, right? We can move on. All right. So sorry about that. So the next thing is we we should enter object oriented programming. Object oriented programming. All right. So um, before we start writing any code, right? Um, and we are also going to use this to write something fun, a bit more fun, right? Now, let me explain um, a scenario, right, where you can use to understand how object-oriented programming works. Now, take for instance, let's use a bank, right? So every customer of a bank has a bank account, right? And um, each a bank can have a lot of customers, right? And then they can have more customers, right? And per each customer that comes to that bank, right? They have that particular customer's record, right? Now we can that's take the bank to be a class, right? A bank um, is like how do I put it? It's like the body that creates accounts for each of its users. Okay, right? So the bank is just like kind of a factory. They produce accounts and they give it out to people. Now, the accounts that they are creating for each person can be referred to an object from that bank, right? So you five people can go to a bank and five people can create different bank accounts with different names and different account balances, right? Now the 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 bank account itself is like an object that the bank has been able to create for you. Okay. If you also look at it as and let me use an architectural um, comparison to also explain the concept of classes and objects, right? So a class can be like referred to the architectural drawing of a particular house, right? Now, I can use that architectural sketch or that um, plan drawn by an architecture, right? I can use that to build um, 20 of the same building using the architectural plan, right? So the so that architectural drawing is like a blueprint, right? It's a blueprint to the main building I want to build, right? Then we can refer to the buildings I have made from that architectural plan. Like I can refer to those buildings as instances um, of that class. Does it make sense? Do you guys are you guys following what I'm trying to explain? Right? So
Yes.
so classes have instances, right? Classes have instances. So the blueprints we are having, for example, the instance of that blueprint, right, would be the building I've built using that blueprint. So I can create 100 instances of the same class, right? I can create 50 buildings from the same drawing, right? So that's the same way object-oriented programming is. I can create thousands of classes, right? I can create thousands of objects from the same class. Okay, that's that's like the main concept of object-oriented programming, right? So let's see how that works out in programming, right? Now let me create um, let me create a bank, right? Or let me create a bank that issues out bank accounts as a class. Then I'm going to create instances of that class, which are going to be people's account balances, right? So let's see how that's been done. Now, this is how you create a class, right? Right? Create a class in JavaScript, you write class. Although it's called syntactic sugar, it's not really creating a class. Actually, JavaScript is a prototype language, right? You guys can like um, research more on what prototyping is, right? So, what when we write class on JavaScript, it's just converted to prototypes and being used by the compiler, right? I know it might not really make sense what I'm trying to say to some people, but just know JavaScript is a prototype language. Classes came out during when ES6 came out, and there's ES5, there's ES6. You can always read about all these things, right? It's not everything I'll tell you, right? So let me create a class named bank account, right? So bank account, for example, like that. Now, um, this is how to create a class in JavaScript, okay? But then, how how do we pre-fill this bank account classes with values that the user provides? Let's take for example when you're going to a bank. When you go to a bank, they don't just create an account for you before asking you for your account name and how much you want to deposit, right? They first maybe give you a form, you fill the form, and then they use the details of that form to create your account balance, right? So that is in a way like what how classes behave, right? So now you when once you create a bank, when once you create a class, there are some things you want to set up on that class, the initial setup of that class before you start using it. Okay, so those things are you set them up in what is called a constructor. So this is how you write it. You'd say constructor. Now the constructor is the very first um, method that is going to be executed when once an instance of a bank account is created or an instance of a class is created. Okay, and we are going to see how all this plays out. If you're not following, you see how it plays out, right? This constructor runs immediately when once you create an instance of a bank account, right? So, of course, what does a bank account usually have? It has um, name, right? It has the name of the owner. It has a balance, right? Let me just start with name and balance, right? Those two, okay? And um, we want to refer to the instance of that particular class, of this particular bank account class. So this is how you do it. You say this dot name equals to name. Now let me explain what this keyword means. When once you instantiate a class, right, that instance of that class is going to be referred to as this. It's one thing that is usually very confusing. I'll come back to that. We say this dot balance should be equals to balance, right? Now, with what we've written so far, we've been able to like we've been able to create a blueprint for how a bank account should look. Okay, so this is a blueprint. I can use this to create thousands of bank accounts, right? This is although this is not like back end stuff, right? Or this is object oriented programming I'm using to set as an example, right? We have a bank account. Now, how do I create different bank accounts, right? How do I create instances of these bank accounts? Remember, we have an architectural drawing, but we want to create buildings from those architectural drawing. That's the same thing we want to do here. We have a bank account, right? But we want to create um, uh, people's account from this particular bank account. Or I think I should just name this a bank, right? Anyone. So this is how you instantiate a class. You say const. Let me use someone's name here. Let me use Solomon Sunday, right? So I'll say const Solomon equals to new bank account. Now, Solomon Solomon is an instance of this bank account. I hope you understand. You guys are following. Solomon is an instance. Now, I'm going to give this particular instance, right? This Solomon instance, a name and an account balance. So I'll give it Solomon Sunday. Then I'll give it a bank balance of like um, 4,000, whatever, 4,000 naira or whatever that would mean, right? I can create another instance, right? Um, I could create another instance of an account, right? So I could say const Lois. I'll use Lois here. So I would say Lois is equals to new bank account, right? But then um, I'll give it a name, right? Remember, now look, when once we create this instance, this Solomon Sunday is going to be the value of this name for that particular instance, while this balance is going to be the balance for for that particular instance of Solomon, right? So now let's see. Let me use let me use this is Lois. Lois. So and then maybe an account balance of like 7,000 naira. Sorry, Solomon is like Lois has money more than you. Don't mind me. All right. Now we can access the individual properties of each of these instances, right? We can access those individual properties. So if I want to access the balance for Solomon, for example, right? I can do this. I could then write console.log Solomon dot. Now I have access to his name and his balance. So if I want to get Solomon's balance, I'll just say console.log Solomon.balance. If I want to get Lois balance, I'll say console.log Lois.balance. Okay, now let me clear my console. If I come back here and I run that code, you see, Solomon's balance is printing out 4,000, right? Lois balance is printing out 7,000. And we can change the value of so like each of these people's balance. For example, I can change the value of Solomon's balance before printing it, right? If I want to change Solomon's balance, right? Or let me do it under after printing the balance of 4,000. I can come down here and write something like Solomon Solomon dot um, Solomon dot balance should be equals to 6,000, right? And then after that, if I run node run, okay, after changing that balance to 6,000, we'll come back here and say console.log solomon.balance, right? So after that, we say node run me. You see, at this point, Solomon's balance is 4,000, Lois balance is 7,000, but we've been able to change Solomon's balance to becoming 6,000 now. And changing Solomon's balance affects only Solomon, doesn't affect. If I come back here and I console.log um, Lois balance, right? Lois dot balance. It's going to return. It's going to still return the same 7,000 naira, right? Now, there are some few principles about object-oriented programming, right? There is the principle of encapsulation. Encapsulation. There is the principle of abstraction, right? Um, there's there's one other one which I can't remember easily now. Abstraction, encapsulation, um,
Inheritance.
yeah, inheritance, and there's polymorphism, right?
Yeah. Polymorphism.
Yeah, there's encapsulation, abstraction, inheritance, polymorphism. Now, I'll start with polymorphism. Polymorphism is just simply one instance, right? One class, like having a lot of instance. Poly means change, right? Abi? Okay, sorry. Poly
Many,
means
many,
sorry.
many
Poly means many, sorry. While morphism means like change, for
forms.
something
Forms.
to change in its own, yeah, change form, for it to change form, right? Or let's say, yeah, morph means many forms, right? Or forms. So polymorphism means many forms, right? So if you look here, we have bank account as a class, but we are having many different instances of the same class, right? Bank account, Solomon instance of the same bank account, Lois instance of the same bank account, right? And then whatever Solomon does is doesn't affect Lois. What Lois does doesn't affect Solomon. Okay, we can have more instance of the same class, right? And each of those instances will have their own personal properties that don't affect any other person. Okay, so having this, right, different having different um, forms of the same class, right? Having these different objects from the same class, right? And then those different objects can retain their individual properties without affecting other objects, right? That's one usefulness of like objects, right? And then that proves that polymorphism, right, can be achieved using objects, right? Because we can have different forms, right, of the same class, right? The same, like many forms, many objects from a particular class, right? And then each of those objects retain their properties. Okay. Does anybody have any question based on what have explained? Any question?
Yeah, sorry. You said each of the objects retains their properties. So does
Yes.
that mean that means because from the first time you said console.log Solomon.balance, right? And then
Mm.
you added a balance to 6,000, right?
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah.
which means you also had to like I was thinking it was gonna like add up to the initial console.log. You had to um put in another initial console.log for it to be logged out.
What I did was I reassigned the value from being 4,000 to being 6,000 here.
Yeah. Well, it
Yeah.
still
So
printed out the initial 4,000 from your output.
see, this 4,000 is before I assigned the balance to 6,000.
Okay. Okay. So
So
as at 6,000, the 4,000 is irrelevant.
yeah, okay. See, let me explain it to you. At this
Okay.
point, the balance is still 4,000 for Solomon.
Yeah.
Here, yes, the balance here is 7,000 for Lois. Any
Yeah.
program that is run before this line 22
Yeah.
for Solomon would see Solomon's balance as 4,000.
Okay.
But when once after writing Solomon's balance should now be equal to 6,000, any code that is going to come under after this line 22, is going to see Solomon's balance as being 6,000 because we have reassigned the value of Solomon's balance from being 4,000 to being 6,000.
Okay.
So that's why when we I wrote Solomon.balance here, it's printing out 6,000 here. Then I now wrote Lois.balance, it's now printing out 7,000. Lois balance, I didn't change anything. Do you understand it now?
Yeah, I think as we progress, I will.
Okay. Do you have any other question?
No, I'm fine.
What I want to ask is, what's the advantage of OOP over functional programming?
Okay, the advantage of OOP over functional programming, right? Now, um, if you would want to do the same thing using functional programming, you would probably need to write um, you probably need to write functions for each person, right? So
Okay.
maybe a function for Solomon to have his own balance and all those stuff. You write another function for
Okay.
you for Lois to have his own balance and his details and the rest of those stuff like that. But then with writing it this way, right? Using classes, you can just write your class once, right? And then you can use um, the functions, sorry, you can access the properties of that class for that particular instance and use it as much as you want. You can create thousands of um, um, instances of the same class. So it's just like saying you write it once, but you can use it to create. It's just like saying you have a factory for bank account and you can produce as much bank accounts as you want, right? But using functional programming is similar to saying for one bank account you want to build, you have to build a factory for that one bank account. After producing that one bank account, you destroy the factory. If you want to produce another one, you have to build another bank account factory, kind of. Does it make sense?
Okay.
Does it make sense to you?
Yes.
Okay. Does any other person have any question to ask? No other question?
Okay, hello, sir.
Yeah,
Hello.
okay.
Please, what I wanted to ask is, since I've updated the balance of a Solomon to the new balance I want to, now I don't want the previous amount to be shown in my terminal anymore. What should I do to get rid of it? Mean like the previous balance. I don't want to be seeing it again.
And you, if you don't want to see it again, just delete this line of code now. If you don't want to see it at all, at all.
Like I just wanted to leave it there, but not get rid of it totally.
Um, I don't get if you have this line of code. Okay, you can comment it. Yes, you can comment it. So just add double forward
Double
slash
slash.
before that line.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So if you do that, you won't see it anymore, right? So now, apart from now, this name and this balance are properties of the bank account class, right? And then we are saying the property, the bank account property, or that bank account name should be equal to the name that we pass when we are instantiating that particular class, like when we are creating an object from that class. So now, Solomon is an although I'm not referring to the person on the call, right? But Solomon here as this name, right, is an object of a bank account class. Is a new object created from the bank account class. This Lois 2 is also another object, right, that's created from this bank account class. Okay, do you guys understand that? Do you get that? This these
Yes, we
two
understand.
these two are independent. Their paths don't cross. Okay. Now there are things you can do, right? We might not want to change these names directly by saying maybe Solomon.name should be maybe another name, right? We might want to write out methods for that for this class. Now, notice what we are doing. We just less the balance and we did not add square brackets, right? Do you do you remember? I remember when we were using arrays, we said maybe something like array dot length. Do you guys remember stuff like that? And we said length is a property, Abi. So it's the same thing here, right? So name and balance are properties of the bank account. And then um, when once you instantiate create an instance of a class, right? You supply the properties for that particular class and then use it to do whatever you want to do, right? We can add more features to this our class. For example, I want to write a function or a method to be able to change the balance so that I don't change the balance directly, right? If I want to do that, this is how I'll do it. I would say maybe, right? I would say add balance. Let's say I want to add balance, maybe not reassigning the balance, right? But I want to maybe add money. For example, um, I could say 7,000, right? And then if I add 1,000 to 7,000, it should now become 8,000, stuff like that, right? You can do it the normal way, right? Using this dot balance and the rest of that. You can say this dot balance should be plus equals to 1, or this dot balance should be equals to this dot balance plus 1. Okay, but then what if we just had a convenient function, right, or a convenient method that we can call and then it's just going to update the balance for us to use? So how would we do that? We can say deposit. I'll call it deposit, right? Deposit is going to accept cash in there, and then we can do something like this. So now if I want to deposit, I would say this dot balance should be plus equals to cash. I hope you guys understand that writing this is the same thing as writing line 14 is the same thing as writing this dot balance should be equals to this dot balance plus cash. I hope you know these two lines are exactly the same thing. It's just that this is the shorter version or the shorter way of writing it. So what I'm saying is that the new balance for that particular object should be the old balance, right? This old balance plus whatever, how much you want to deposit. That's what I'm saying here. And of course, I might want to get the the new balance, so I could return this dot balance, right? I can decide to withdraw. Or what did I just do? I can decide to withdraw. So I could say withdraw. Then inside withdraw, then I would say how much do I want to withdraw? How much cash? I would say it accepts a cache, right? And then inside the cache, um, I can then say first I want to check if your balance is even sufficient to withdraw. So I'll say um, if this dot balance minus the cash is going to be less than 0. So I should console.log insufficient balance. Okay, but then if that is not the case, right? Yeah, what I'm checking is if after we withdraw the cash from your balance, your balance is less than 0, right? This is that expression. If that balance minus your cash, right? If the value gotten is going to be less than 0, then we should tell you that you have insufficient fund, and we need to return this so that it won't continue and try to withdraw. Return. But then what if you have the balance? Then we'll down. What if you have enough cash? We'll now say this dot balance should be minus equal to cash. Then of course I can return that new balance, right? Then um, I could also write another method to inquire for my balance. So I could say um, balance inquiry. Oh, so it should return um, hello, hello, this dot name your account balance is okay. I'm supposed to add a plus here. Your account balance is plus this dot balance. So with those three different methods, we can start playing around with our whole code, right? We can start playing around with the whole code. I can deposit, I can withdraw, I can inquire for my balance and the rest of the stuff. So I'll still use Solomon and Lois. So I'll say I want to get my balance inquiry in a very beautiful manner. So I could say console.log. I want to get Solomon's own. So I'll say Solomon dot right now. You see, apart from the properties, the name and the balance properties, we have methods now that we can call. So if I say balance inquiry, since it's a method, we are going to put bracket because we want to call it. If I run that code now, you see, hello Solomon Sunday, your balance is 4,000 naira. You can do the same thing for Lois, console.log. I'll say Lois dot balance inquiry. Then I'll say, see, so Lois and Solomon, it's showing out their respective balances, right? Then um, I could add to their balance. I could say console.log um, Solomon dot deposit. So I want to deposit the I want maybe someone wants to deposit like 2,000 naira, urgent 2,000 naira. Then after doing that, you can console the log uh, Solomon dot balance inquiry to see how much he has now. So let me clear out my terminal and then let me run that code. So if we run it now, you see, first Solomon had 4,000 naira, Lois had 7,000 naira. Then after depositing, right? What I wrote here is after depositing, withdrawing or depositing, right? That the balance should I want to receive that the new balance, right? So that's why this is printing at 6,000 at this point. Then after that, after Solomon deposited 2,000 naira, he decided to ask for his inquiry, the inquiry of his account, right? Lois can do the same thing. Lois might want to withdraw maybe 1,000 naira, for example. So console.log Lois dot withdraw. Maybe she wants to withdraw 1,000, right? And then console.log. She after withdrawing 1,000, she asks for her balance, right? Let's run the what we've written first to see what goes on. See? So Solomon had 4,000 naira, Lois had 7,000 naira. Solomon withdrew um, Solomon deposited 2,000 naira, so his new balance is 6,000 naira. Then he asked for his balance inquiry, right? And it's told that he has 6,000 naira now, right? Then after that, Lois withdrew 1,000 naira, and then you see she withdrew 1,000 naira, and then she got her balance is 6,000 naira now, right? And then she asked for her balance, and then it showed a full balance of 6,000 naira, right? Let's see. Let's Solomon try to withdraw more than his what his account carries now. So console.log. I know it's going to show undefined because okay. Let me just do it. Console.log. Um, I'll say Solomon dot withdraw. Let's say he wants to withdraw like 30,000. Right? Let me run the code again. You see? So after that, after trying to withdraw 30,000 and it is not successful, let's console.log his balance. See? So his balance is still 6,000 naira, even if he tried to withdraw 30,000 naira. Okay? It showed insufficient balance, and imagine I didn't put this return keyword here. It will show insufficient balance, but then because there was no return here, it's going to continue further to try and execute this. Do you guys want to see that happen? Hello, are you guys still here?
It would have been a good thing if banks allow it like that. You have insufficient balance, then they give you your balance.
Okay, they allow you to withdraw more than
No, allow
how
you
much you
withdraw
have.
what you have, even if you have insufficient. They just release what you have.
Okay, they should. I don't get it. Like you like it the way it is now, or they should give you all your balance.
No, I mean, if you don't need to now key in the exact what you have again. If it says insufficient, then they should give you what you have instead of now putting 6,000. But I understand your decoding.
Okay, I understand what you mean. So if you try to withdraw more than your balance and it shows insufficient, after showing insufficient, you should then withdraw the whole 6,000 naira that you have, like the whole balance, and give you.
Yes.
Yeah, it's possible to do that. If you want to do that, then after saying insufficient balance, the next thing you need to do is just assign the person's balance to 0. Finish. Or you can just say this dot balance should be equals to this dot balance minus this dot balance. So it's like saying the new balance should be equals to 6,000 minus 6,000 basically, or you can just assign it to 0 and tell the person you've withdrawn 6,000 or something like that, right? So it's possible to do. But instead, what if Solomon did not want to withdraw that 6,000? So this is just like as an example, right, of how um, how you can use OOP, object-oriented programming, right, to do some fun things, right? So we can have plenty accounts, 5 accounts, 7 accounts, and or even more, and then we can do a lot of things with those accounts, right? But then there is a little issue. Now, if you look here, Solomon can decide not to use Solomon.deposit and then pass in 2,000 naira, right? Solomon can decide to just access his balance directly and change it, right? Solomon can do something like this. So, and but I know Solomon can won't do that, sha. Solomon dot balance should be equals to 500,000 or whatever that is, right? And then if Solomon comes back and inquires for his balance, if Solomon comes back and inquires for his balance, Solomon dot balance inquiry, right? It's going to show that new value that he put in there. So allowing them to access their balance, allowing customers to access their balance directly is not going to be cool. It's not going to be nice, right? What if the federal government, as they do normally, they say that maybe for student accounts, like you can't deposit more than like 20, they're like how much? Maybe 500,000 or 200,000. So how do you, if Solomon can change his balance directly, how do you stop him from doing that? Okay. Now there is what is called private properties in um, in programming, in OOP, object-oriented programming. So private properties are those kind of properties that you can't access from outside the object, right? You can't access them directly, but they can be accessed by any other property or any other method inside that object, right? So how do we use private properties, right? Private properties can be, now remember what I said, private properties can be accessed by the deposit function, the withdraw function, the balance inquiry. But if if I make this balance, for example, a private property, right? If Solomon tries to do this dot balance and tries to set it or try to print it out, it will not work. Now, how do we use private properties, right? If you want to use private properties, right, you do this. You are going to put hash before that particular property that I want to be private. So that means since you're saying this dot hash balance, right, you're going to also do it everywhere. For your deposits, right? For your withdraw, you put it there. Um, even here, and then you would also put it there. Now let's see. Let's run this code again to see. Okay, they said balance must be declared with an declared in an enclosing class. Okay, I know why that is happening. Okay, so we need to say hash balance here. We need to declare it before we start using it. Without declaring it, you won't be able to use it. So let's come back here and try to run that code again. Clear, then I'll come back and run that. You see? Now, at this point, right? At this point where Solomon is trying to change his balance, it's showing it's not working out, right? See, after he tried to change his balance, right? It's not working out, right? Solomon now, after thinking he changed his balance, he came back here and did Solomon.balance inquiry, and it's still showing 6,000. Do you see that? So even if you write Solomon.hash balance, that one is even going to try an error. It's going to tell you hash balance is not even is a private field, right? So you can't access it directly, and you can't even access dot balance because dot balance itself doesn't exist. If you try to print out balance directly like console.log, then you say Solomon.balance, right? Let me write um, Solomon's balance, right? Let me print it out. You see, it's saying Solomon's balance undefined, right? Now, the concept of now, apart from having private properties like this balance, you can have a private function, right? Like I can make it impossible for you to access the deposit function. Like for example, if I want to lock deposits here, right? I don't want deposit to any, or let's say I lock the withdrawal. I want to lock the withdraw method. So you can deposit, but you cannot withdraw, right? If I want to lock that, I'll just put hash withdraw. Now, if I put hash withdraw here, hash withdraw cannot be accessed outside this class. So if we come back here, run this, you see, it's going to tell you at the point that Lois tried to withdraw, it's telling you withdraw is not a function, right? Because of that hash we put before withdraw, withdraw now becomes a private property. So which means this withdraw cannot be accessed um, outside there, right? But then I can I can do something like this. I can create another function that access this withdraw function directly, right? I can do the same thing for deposit, right? So if I want it that it maybe you shouldn't withdraw less than 20,000 naira, I can create another deposit function, sorry, another withdraw function, and use that to access this particular one, right? Is it confusing? Okay, so Timothy Alabi is
Yes,
saying
no.
I should explain the function of the hash in the name. Okay, so the hash in the name, right? That hash makes that property or that method private to the class. So it's only the class that can access it. The objects that you're instantiating can't accept a function with this hash. This hash makes that function private. The same way the hash in this balance makes the balance a private property, right? This is a private method. The withdraw now method outside that class. Okay?
This is my own question.
Okay. Ask your question.
But okay, before you put that hashtag in and balance, the console, the printout was telling you that it wasn't declared. Balance was not declared, isn't it? Before you put the balance up there with hashtag,
Yes,
with
yes,
that
yes.
hash, it was telling you.
Mhm.
So what I want to ask now, this hash, balance now. Is it
Hmm.
the way you is it that you have declared the balance by adding this hash balance?
You say,
Is it a
is it
method of
what?
declaring the method of declaring in this object oriented whatever? Please don't get
Okay,
so. I want to know whether this is a
okay.
method hash balance is a method of declaration.
No, this, yeah, okay. This is, yes, this is how you declare a private property.
Okay.
Yes, this is how you
Maybe
declare it. So before using the private property, you have to first declare it like this. So you're saying that what you're effectively doing now is you're effectively saying, I am expecting hash balance, but I'm expecting it as a private property, right? So
Okay.
now hash balance would now be equals to undefined. But then when this constructor runs, the property of the balance would be equal to whatever you passed during instantiation. But then after instantiating, you can't access the balance directly again, except you call this balance inquiry or you try to withdraw deposit.
Okay.
okay. I
Okay.
think I this way I would say I understand in the sense that when we withdraw, actually withdraw, we will be given a debit alert, and then our new balance comes with that debit alert. That is what that is explaining, right?
You mean, yeah, you mean we are here?
This hash balance equals to balance up up. No, yeah, yes,
Here?
that yes.
Yeah, this hash balance is so this, so what we are saying is the private property, this line here, this one here is referring to this balance. We are saying this, that the private property of balance should be the balance that we are passing while we instantiate. Do you understand?
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Well, I still have one question. I'm trying to. Sorry for taking you back. This, but you know that when you go up, that name equals to this dot name and this
Yes.
dot balance. Both are declaration
Mm-hmm.
within the constructor.
Mm-hmm.
The both this dot name and this dot balance.
Mm.
Both of them are declaration within the constructor, isn't it?
Yes.
So why declare balance separate again under bank accounts since it has been declared within the constructor?
That's because it's private.
The one
Without,
up
if
there,
this was, if
it has
this,
been declared
we,
within the constructor. Then up there again, you declared it again with semicolon
So,
inside the bank account.
so I think you should go over what is a private is it declaration? Or
property,
maybe just
right?
their
A
property. Explain
private
it.
property.
That will solve it.
Okay, I'll go over that now. So what is really, what is a private property? Let me start from there. Madam Lois, what is a private property? What do you understand by a private property? When they say something is a private property, what do you think it means?
Myself,
Yes.
okay. Private property is something that is personal to you.
Yes. Now it's personal. Now, this
Uh,
bank account, right, is a class.
okay, okay.
And then the bank account now, we are not saying now this dot name is like saying um for the object, for we are saying it's like this this here is referring to when we've created an object, this now will refer to this object name. So at this
Mm,
point, this will be that when we instantiate the object with Solomon as a name, that this will be pointing to that object name. So when we say Solomon dot name, right? What we are saying is that I don't know how to really make it clear to you. When we say Solomon.name or Lois.name, right? Remember that when we say this bank account, right? And
mm,
then we pass in the properties, the name and the balance. Those properties are properties for this particular object that we've instantiated. I hope you understand what I'm
Yes,
saying.
I'm trying.
But now we are saying this balance is not this balance now should be private. Like it shouldn't be you shouldn't be able to access it directly by saying the object name dot bank account.
I really understand. My concern was why it was declared twice. That was just my concern. But I understand what it's all about.
Okay, okay. It's declared twice because it's private. If it's not private, it won't be declared twice.
Okay, better understood that way.
Yeah, it won't. So because it's private, that's why. But if it's not private, right? It's like saying, so now why we need to declare it here is because we want a place where we can store the value of that balance privately, right? This dot balance without the hash is going to make it public. Anybody can
Okay,
change it. But
okay,
this dot hash balance is going to look for a place where you can store it inside this class. And if you don't declare a place where you can store it, it's not going to be
okay,
able to store it.
okay.
Have I
So,
answered
sir,
your question now?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
uh, um,
okay. Ask your question.
yes, that for that hash withdraw you only like you just use hash withdraw only for that place. You didn't like use it other places the way you did for this balance. And this hash withdraw, yes.
Yeah,
Is
I'm
it because
making, yeah, now I'm making hash withdraw private.
mm,
So which means you cannot do, you can, now this balance dot withdraw is not going to work anymore.
okay.
Do you understand? This one too is not going
Yes,
to
sir.
work anymore because that balance is now private.
Okay. So why do you
Sorry,
have
because
to
the withdraw
add
is now private.
okay.
You say, why do I need to?
But you added hash to all this thing, the balance, I mean, yes. You added hash
Eh,
to all those
with
ones on every
withdraw is not called nah,
added.
yeah, withdraw is not called in any other place inside this class. Withdraw is just a method on its own. There's no other place I'm calling
Okay,
withdraw.
okay. Thank you.
Mhm. So I can write another class that, oh, okay, you cannot withdraw if your balance is less than 20,000, for example, right? But now I can use that to call this withdraw. So I can do something like this. Instead of allowing people to just withdraw, right? I can check for a particular maybe criteria before you can withdraw. So I could do something like this. Um, I could say withdraw if balance is greater than 20,000. So let me do that. Let me write that. So I'll pass in cash here, right? Then I could do something like this. If balance or if this dot hash balance is less than 20,000, right? Then we should return maybe I should just console the log here directly. We should return not allowed to withdraw, right? But then if it is more than 20,000, then I can then call return this dot withdraw. Then I can pass in the cash in there. Hello, do you guys follow up to this extent?
I was thinking after the each if statement, else will come.
Yes, we can do it like that, but I want to show you how you can actually use private properties to make your life easier with
Okay.
the same thing.
Okay.
Now, what is going to happen is when you try to withdraw, okay, it is going to first check. Do you have up to 20,000? If you don't have up to 20,000, it's going to return that you are not allowed to withdraw. Okay. But then if you have up to maybe greater than 20,000, like you have 21,000, for example, then it's now going to call the withdraw function and pass the cash to that withdraw function. Then remember now that our withdraw function is also going to check if after withdrawing the cash, your balance will be insufficient. Abi, if your balance is insufficient, it will then return this that your balance is not sufficient. But if it's going to be sufficient, then it will withdraw and to send you back your new balance. Okay? Does it make sense?
It
Hello, are you
does.
guys following? You're lost.
What if you want to withdraw
No,
that
I
amount?
say it does.
So, okay. Someone wanted to ask a question.
I said, what if you want to withdraw that amount apart from 20,000?
You want to withdraw, like if you want to withdraw less than 20,000, like,
Yes.
okay, let's take for example, you have 30,000 and you call the withdraw if your balance is greater than 20,000. It's going to check first, is your balance even above 20,000? If yes, then it's going to call the withdraw function. The withdraw function is going to check, is your balance less if after withdrawing your balance is going to be less than zero, then it will not allow you to withdraw. So there are a lot of things that can happen here. Let's try that out. Let's call now. You know that you can't access withdraw directly. If you write dot withdraw, you won't even see it come up. You won't see it. Instead, you're going to see withdraw if balance is greater than 20. So if we call that, right, and we try to run our code, if we try to run our code now, node run me, you see, it shows Solomon's balance, but then when Lois tried to withdraw, right, it's showing not allowed to withdraw. That's because Lois' account balance is less than 20,000. But let's say when we instantiated, she had like 25,000, right? Then she tried to, okay, I didn't even pass an amount here. Even if I pass an amount, it will still be the same thing, right? Even if I pass maybe um 10 1,000, right? It's still going to be the same thing. Not allowed to withdraw because she has less than 20,000. But let's assume she has 25,000 and she wants to withdraw, let's say 1,000 naira now. You see, if she tries to withdraw, you see, it goes and then it withdraws. So she has now 24,000. She can console.log her um her her balance inquiry. She can check her balance inquiry. You see, let's inquiry, your balance is now 24,000 naira, right? If she can withdraw another one, if she wants to withdraw, she can keep withdrawing 1,000, but when once she has less than 20,000 naira, she won't be able to withdraw again. Okay, she can withdraw her whole 25,000 naira. You see, she just withdrew her whole 25,000 naira. But let's take for example, she has 25,000 naira and she's trying to withdraw 26,000 naira, right? See, it's going to tell her insufficient balance. Why? She has more than 20. She has more than 20,000 naira, right? But now so which means this one runs perfectly and passes the cash that is supposed to be withdrawn to withdraw. Now withdraw checks. After withdrawing, will we have my negative balance? if we are going to have a negative balance, then tell her insufficient balance. But if we won't have a negative balance, if after trying to withdraw, then we should just send her back like her cash, right? We should withdraw the cash and then send back her current bank um, uh, her current bank what they call it balance, right? What I explained last, right? I think I should just go over it again. I said that um if you're calling withdraw with balance, remember you cannot access withdraw like directly, right? You can't access withdraw directly, but you can access withdraw balance if the balance is greater than 2,000. You can access this particular method, right? So now, remember what I said. If your balance is not up to 20,000 naira, it will stop your request from going further. But then if your balance is up to 20,000 naira, then this particular withdraw balance is going to call the inner withdraw balance function, right? Or the private withdraw balance method, which cannot be accessed from outside the class. Do you understand? Do you guys understand? Is there any question you might have to ask pertaining to that, what I just explained? Hello, is there any question? Guys, can you hear me?
Let's continue from where we stopped.
Hello, yeah?
Let's continue from where we stopped.
You said I can continue, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, all right. So let's continue. So this what I just explained to you, right? We've been able to do something, right? We've been able to achieve both of these, right? Encapsulation and abstraction, they are kind of similar, but they are not the same, right? Now, let me explain from what we've done so far. Encapsulation is the idea of hiding out the inner workings, right, of a particular okay, yeah, encapsulation is hiding out the ideas, the inner workings of a particular function, right, of a particular class. For example, we have this whole um bank account class, right? And then inside this bank account class, we only have access to deposit, balance inquiry, and withdraw balance. Any other thing that is happening inside this bank account, right? We might not know. Take for example, if this whole bank account was a library that was maybe recommended that you should use for your software, for example, or your back end, right? You don't really care about what the inner workings of it, right? They just tell you if you call deposit, right, and then you pass in a cash, it will deposit the cash for you. If you call balance inquiry to give you your balance, if you try to withdraw, you can, this is the method you have to call, and you don't care like how that is working. You just know that they told you that, and since they told you that it's supposed to work in that fashion, right? Each of these methods is going to run in the fashion they told you it's going to run. Okay. Then, so encapsulation is just putting out, like making, let's say a group of uh, functions, right? Or a group of things that are supposed to happen, maybe putting them in a particular, let's say method, right? So you can just call that singular method, and then you make sure that once you call that singular method, everything that's supposed to happen for that like method, what they promised you is going to do is going to happen, right? abstraction is kind of similar to, because abstraction is like hiding of details. You're not seeing some certain details, right? Those details are like hidden from you. So you just, like, for example, this balance now, we can't access it directly now, right? So this balance is abstracted from us. It's not, we don't have direct access to it, but we can get this balance when we call the balance inquiry method. Okay, but then encapsulation is just the idea that you have things that you have functions that you can call, but you don't know the you might not really know the inner workings of those functions. But it's just like having a DVD player, right? You have a DVD player. They tell you if you put a disc inside this DVD player and you click on play, it will start playing. But do you wonder what happens to the disc while you press the play button, right? Those, whatever happens is it's not known to you, right? It's not known to you. It's encapsulated in that particular DVD player, and then they give you an interface to interact with that DVD player, right? But then abstraction is that abstraction, using a DVD player as an example, is like saying that there are some properties inside, or some functions inside that DVD player that you don't have direct access to, right? You don't have direct access to, but they are abstracted in such a way that you, when you interact with the DVD player, right, that DVD player can call that abstracted function inside the DVD player without your knowledge, without you knowing that this is what is happening. This abstracted maybe function was called, right? But everything is explained to you in the manual, right? So that's how abstraction works, and encapsulation. Now, the idea of inheritance is an idea, right? It's a form of object-oriented programming, right? In which a class can get properties from other classes. Okay, you can have one class, and then you have that class having the property of another class. Okay, is there okay is there any question? Low battery, I'm leaving now. Okay, no question, right? So let's continue. So now, how do for example, we have bank accounts, but now we are just creating bank accounts. How do we create a bank that should have those bank accounts, right? It's not just to create all the bank accounts, right? You should create bank, and then that bank should have maybe the bank account now. So a bank account is a child of a bank, right? It's just like this parent and children relationship. Everybody has a father. You inherit the properties of your father, right? So the same way a program can inherit the properties of another program, or in this case, a class can inherit properties of a particular class, right? So let me create a bank as a class, right? And the bank will just have a bank name and location. Okay. So if I want to do that, I'll do this. I'll write class bank, right? And then inside this bank, we still have a constructor. In the constructor, we'll have the constructor should have a bank name and location. A bank name and location. Then from here, we can then say this dot bank name should be equals to bank name this dot location should be equals to location. Now we have bank, right? And we have bank accounts, but this bank account is not related to the bank yet. So how do we make the bank account relates to the bank, or how do we make the bank relate to the bank accounts, right? So we want this bank account to be the child of this bank, right? So it should inherit properties from this bank, while this bank will act in a way as a parent. So in order to do that, you will call inside the constructor for your bank account, right? Let me format this well. In order to do that, you would call the super class here. So the super class is used to, okay, first, before calling the super class, sorry, you say bank accounts should extend bank, right? So now this is like saying bank accounts is an extension of the bank. It's like saying you are the extension of your parents, right? So bank account is the extension of that bank. And then for you to get the properties of this bank, right? You can say what you write here is super. Then inside this super, you have a bank name, you have a location, right? So you can say bank name, location, like that. And then you're also going to pass same into the super class. Okay. So with doing that now, you need to add some new properties to your bank account. Okay. So for example, I want to add the bank name and location. If I could do this, maybe the bank name should just be ZE Bank. The location should be Nigeria. Okay. So then how do we access this bank name and location? Let me just delete all this here. So to access that, I would say console.log Solomon dots. Now we have bank name and location, right, as properties here. So if I say Solomon.bank name, and let me open a new terminal. So if I said Solomon.bank name, and I came here and wrote node index. See, that brings ZE Bank, right? That's the bank name, right? For Solomon's bank account, right? If I do that same thing for Lois, it's going to also print ZE Bank, right? You see that now the bank account doesn't directly have the bank name and location, right? But the bank name, the bank itself is the one that has the bank name and location, right? But then we are extending the bank, right? And then everything that has to do with the properties of that bank, right? We can access it from our bank account. Is it confusing? Does anybody find it really confusing? Hello? Are you guys still here?
Yes, we are. I am. It's really confusing, to be honest.
Yes, yes, we are here.
Just compounding.
Okay, it's confusing now, right? Very confusing.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. All right. Look, the I think it's this is this concept of inheritance that is confusing, not the whole thing, right?
Yes. Yes. The concept is just introduced now, where you have the bank name and location, and then out. Yeah.
Okay. Now, let's look at, let me try to explain what is happening here, right? Let's say that you don't want you don't want to access, you don't want the bank name and location to be directly into the bank account, right? You want the bank name and bank account to be in another class, right? But then um but then you want to access the properties of that particular class in another class. So it's like saying this bank name and bank location, right, is accessible to this bank name, right? Why you might want to do this is you might want to create only a bank without a bank account, right? But another person wants to create a bank account, right? And that bank account should always have a bank. But this is just like saying you're creating a bank, but you shouldn't be able to do anything. You shouldn't keep anybody's money. You shouldn't do anything. Just a bank like that. You just have name and location, but we are not in service, right? But bank accounts now can be traced to a particular bank, right? Something of that nature. But now, you don't want to have the bank name and bank location, for example, in this our example, directly into because a bank account cannot have a name and a location, right? But a bank can have a name and a location, right? And that bank has it has a child, right? And that child is like the bank account, right? But then when people come to the bank, they can create an account. So creating an instance of a bank account, right, also creates kind of kinds of create a bank for you in a way. I don't know if it makes sense. You have a bank account, and then creating that bank account will be traced to a particular bank, right? So the properties of that bank you can set by extending that bank. So now the bank is like the parent, right? While the bank account is like the child of that bank parent, right? You can make this kind of relationship in object-oriented programming. Okay, it's not difficult to make that kind of relationship. Okay, but then what you're effectively saying here is the bank account should have all the properties of the bank. So the properties here are the bank name and the bank location. Okay. And then here,
Okay.
and then here, when we say super.bank name, right, we are saying that when we are instantiating the bank account, right, after creating the as we want to create the properties for this bank account, right, remember to also create properties for the bank, which is this bank name and the location.
Okay.
Does it make sense now? This super is like saying whatever we are extending, right? Whatever class we are extending, this is the properties that I want to pass to it. So now we can pass in bank name and bank location to our bank account, and then it is going to be sent as attributes to this bank or properties to this bank, right?
Okay.
Then we can so if we create a bank account, then we can then have a bank that is paired to that particular bank account. it's I don't know how else to break it really, like to make it so simple, right? I think this is like the simplest I can actually break it. I don't know how else. I'm thinking, okay, um everybody has parents, right? So you're an extension of your parents, right? And if someone gives you something and tells you to give it to your dad, right? You collect it from the person and you give it to your dad, right? Or if he says give it to your mom, you collect it and give it to your mom. That is the same way bank accounts is being created. And we are saying when we pass the properties of bank name and location to the bank account, that bank account should then pass that same name and location to the bank. So this super here is referring to the class we are extending, which is this bank class.
Okay. So you can access the bank through the bank account.
Yes. Yes. I can access properties of the bank through the bank account now.
Okay. I think I get it.
So I can now say bank account dot name, and it's going to, since this bank name is the what is coming from the bank, I can access it. If I say bank accounts dot location, right? Since I'm extending bank, it's going to understand that I'm trying to access the location that I declared when I instantiated that particular instance, right, of that bank account. It's going to know that, okay, the location should be that bank's location when I instantiated this bank account.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Confusing, still confusing. I'm very, very sure it's still confusing.
Yeah, but I believe if I watch the video again, I will be fine.
Okay, cool. No problem. Most concepts are not easily understood the very first time, or let's say maybe the second time you're hearing of it, until you watch, maybe you read about it more, or you practice it. That's when it will stick.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I have to show about the
Inheritance.
the classes. And also, let me see, let me try this. So let me see if I can access that directly. Okay. So I can access properties, right? Oh, sorry, methods from the class I'm extending by just using the direct how do we call it, to use the direct objects that we instantiated. For example, I just said solomon.callme, right? And then this, remember that call me is not, we instantiated bank account, not bank, right? But then we are saying Solomon, which is an instance of the bank account, right? We are saying solomon.callme. And if you look, call me is not on the bank account, it's on bank, right? But since we are extending bank, that's why we can have access to this call me. If I remove this extends, right, and I remove this super, right, then we won't be able to access it. In fact, this super is just providing these properties. I can, if I don't want these properties to be here, I can give them default values, and then I don't call them as super. But now see what we are doing. I can access whatever method here, right? Because I'm extending that particular class. So that's why if I run this call me now, it's going to print out that message there. So if I do that now, node index, see, it now shows apart from the name of the bank, it also shows call me there, right? The result of calling that particular function. So you're going to do more of this, right? Although we might not really go into using classes that very much, right? But then it's good to know about classes, because if you understand classes, then you would understand data structure. If you're going to do data structure, you would understand data structure, and let's leave out algorithms, but you understand data structure more simple, right? And you'll be able to also understand design patterns as a topic, because there are other topics like design patterns, data structure and algorithm, and the rest, right? So, but this is the basics of using a class. Okay. So just if you have any question, you can ask now. If you can't ask now, then you can ask at the Discord channel, right? Is there any question? Does anybody have any question now?
Yeah. Hello. Please, I tried to call me and I got an on the bank return after the call. But yours there is no on the bank. So what was the reason for that?
Um, where did you write the code? Inside the bank class?
Yes, inside the bank.
Did you extend your bank accounts?
Yes.
Did you write this?
Yes.
Okay, then how did you instantiate a function? Did you say that's sorry, how did you
Okay,
instantiate
wait.
the class?
I
Did you
think
say
I got it. I used console.log. Maybe that was why.
okay?
Let me remove the console.log.
Okay, so correct that I just called it directly, because I already wrote console.log into the call me function directly. Okay.
Okay now.
Yeah, it's working.
It's okay.
Is it working?
Yes.
All right. Okay. So in that case, we are done for today's class. We would have another class by Thursday, and then maybe I'll go through this again. I'll try to break some things down again with object-oriented programming, and then by next class we'll talk about this client server architecture, right? What's how do clients, and we'll talk about REST APIs, right? What are REST APIs? How do clients and server interact? Get information. How do you get the response? How do you how those things work? Basically, everything that has to do with REST APIs, and then we will see how to maybe use one or two, right? And from there, we'll start writing some little back end code, right? While we are also learning the basics of JavaScript. Okay.
All right. Thank
All
you
right.
very much.
So yeah. So in that case, we are done for today's class. See you on Thursday. And bye bye.
Bye. Thank you.
All right. You're welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, you're welcome.